Thank you, and welcome everyone on this beautiful, warm, but somewhat cloudy winter day. I'm so glad to be here and to be able to talk to you today. I might say that I've been waiting for a chance to talk on this subject since I was 12 years old. Of course, when I was 12, it was mostly about that age of stories of ancient Egypt and the gods and heroes of Greek mythology. And Egypt and her heretic king was, for me, more something that was kind of reassuring, being raised a good, devout Catholic boy. Made me somehow comforting to know that there was someone who had thought that there was only one God, even though there was this wealth of gods and goddesses all around him. I've never really been a body art type of person. I know there are many reasons why people decorate themselves in a permanent way, but I personally had no reason to until about 3 years ago. Maybe it was because I understood that my life, with the imminent loss of my wife, was going to change in a profound way. And in the search for identity, I needed to make a bold philosophical statement about life and my beliefs. But like every good preacher, I needed something that would inspire both me and provoke a question, a hook, so to speak. So I devised a symbol that we're going to talk about, and I had it inked on my right arm. Well, not 6 weeks after, I was admitted to the hospital for heart surgery and got a chance to give the short answer to this question, what does it mean, several times a day to doctors and nurses taking blood samples and checking IVs. And even now, every time I give blood or have a blood test or get a vaccine, I'm invited to give the short answer. And sometimes even just to strangers who just might ask. It makes for good small talk. Well, you're the lucky ones. There's a long answer to what does it mean as well. And since you're a captive audience, I'm going to give you both. First, though, I'd like to give a little background about life in Egypt in the 14th century BCE. In order to understand this symbol, it's useful to know a bit about the significance of writing and the hieroglyphic system, as well as the role that religion played at the time in the Nile Valley. We think of the use of the written words purely as a way of either informing, instructing, entertaining, or persuading. Well, of these four, ancient Egyptians rarely used the latter three. But they added a fifth use, though it's very foreign to modern thinking, and that is that the written word, particularly the hieroglyphic system, could have almost magical significance. They believed that by writing formulas, the words would become reality. If a blessing or a curse were written so that it could be seen, even though the vast majority of the population, probably about 99%, couldn't read, the significance of the message still was released into the world and would become real in some form or another. A family member would be blessed, or an enemy would be cursed or punished, or the departed could find their way through the underworld and would rise to live forever. Of course, this belief has been a boon to Egyptologists for the last 200 years, but it's important for us to know when we're talking about the Egyptian written language and their symbols. Secondly, we need to understand the role that religion played in the lives of people at the time. The concept of an individual having a personal relationship with God, or any god or goddess, was largely unknown until the 2nd century BCE. The ancient Egyptians, as well as the Mesopotamians and the early Greeks and even the Judeans of the Old Testament, thought of their relationship with God or gods as a matter largely of the state. It was the responsibility of the people as a whole to maintain the good graces of the god by sacrifices and good behavior. Some gods protected certain cities, and people usually had no concern with the other tribes or peoples that didn't worship the same gods. Sacrifices and prayers were purely, as evidenced in the Old Testament, public matters. An individual's good conduct was for the maintenance of the social order, for the good of the people, and God rewarded and punished the nation accordingly. There was no heaven to strive for, and Egyptians' best hope was that one would rise with the sun for eternity. Because, as we have said, all worship was public, the priestly class, charged with conducting all ceremonies and sacrifices and maintaining the many shrines, as well as conducting daily blessings and funerals, became very powerful. There was no monetary system as such, and so all the food and livestock and material offerings, such as linen, pottery, grain, and even beer, were offered daily to the many gods at the shrines and temples under the auspices of the priests. And all these items then became valuable purely as barter. And as a result, the priests of the many gods became most particular the priests of Amun-Ra, the sun god, gained immense amounts of wealth and power, rivaled only by the chief priest, the pharaoh, the living Horus, the direct son of the deathless Osiris. This was the situation that Akhenaten, or Amenhotep as he was born, was not only the leader of the people and the nation, but their religious leader as well, the representative of the people before the gods and a sort of demigod himself. Akhenaten, meaning effective for the Aten, or Amenhotep IV, was born sometime around 1365 BCE, the second son of Amenhotep III and the great-great-grandson of Thutmose II, two of the most successful and powerful leaders of the 18th dynasty, and in the middle of Egypt's golden age. He was the husband of the famously beautiful Nefertiti and the father of a minor, but certainly better known pharaoh, Tutankhamun. His reign lasted for about 17 years, from 1352 to 1335 BCE, and had a radical and most disruptive effect on Egyptian society. Why then did Amenhotep IV, as he was known at the beginning of his reign, take the radical step of changing his name to Akhenaten, marginalizing or eliminating the traditional gods, and declaring that there was only one God, the Aten, the sun disk? Even today, we are often unable to understand what motivates our leaders to make their decisions, to see what's going on inside their heads. So, looking back over 3,500 years, it's truly impossible to say with any certainty what he was thinking. One possibility is that he so admired his powerful father, Amenhotep III, that after his father took the great journey to the west to become the eternal living Horus and united with the sun god Amun-Ra, he felt that there was no need for the other gods or for even Amun-Ra, and his father should be worshipped as the Aten, the sun disk. The second possibility was that it was purely a political move, meant to marginalize the all too large and powerful priestly class. And then it could also be that he was just crazy, that the isolation of the kingship and possibly inbreeding or maybe just bad genetics made him lose his mind. But there is also, as many have considered since, that he was a visionary of sorts, that his attempt to found and establish a new religion was prophetic and much needed by the society, in the same way that Moses and Joshua and Christ and Buddha and Muhammad and Baha'u'llah and Ramakrishna were religious visionaries. So with this information, more than most people have at this point on first seeing this image, you are more than ready for the short answer to what does it mean? In the 14th century, so this is my short answer that I've given hundreds of times. In the 14th century BCE, more than 3,500 years ago, there was a pharaoh in ancient Egypt who said that there was only one God, and that God was called the Aten, the sun disk. That's what the hieroglyph at the top spells. A, the feather, T, the loaf of bread or mound of earth, N, the water, followed by the symbol of the sun that says, this is the name of the sun. The sun is shown underneath it with 7 pairs of rays extended as in hands extended, which means the sun is spreading its rays over the entire world. 7 is a number that even today we may use to mean everything, 7 seas, 7 continents, 7 wonders, and so on. The 3 symbols at the bottom, Ankh, probably a sandal, Wedja, probably a lamp, and Zeneb, folded linen, mean life, wholeness, and health. And the reed basket symbol at the bottom means that these 3 things are being offered to the world as gifts. So essentially, it says that we are all given these 3 gifts from the sun, which, when you think about it, really is very true. There would be no life on this planet without the sun. And so I like to think that when I meet someone and shake hands and offer a greeting, we are sharing in the gifts of life, wholeness, and health from the sun. And there you have it in a nutshell. Well, Akhenaten is far more eloquent. This is from a text found in the tomb of Akhenaten's chief overseer called the Hymn to the Aten, as it's come to be known. Your dawning is beautiful in the horizon of the sky, O living Aten, beginning of life. When you rise in the eastern horizon, you fill every land with your beauty. You are bountiful, great, glittering, high above every land. Your rays, they encompass the lands, even all that you have made. Though you are far away, your rays are upon the earth. Though you are on high, your footprints are the day. I believe that Akhenaten was onto something. He knew that the sun had great power, but he couldn't even have begun to fathom how much. Some examples. Every second for the last 4.5 billion years, the sun has been producing fusion reactions in its core like those of the hydrogen bomb at the rate of 100 billion H-bombs per second. The gamma rays produced in these fusion reactions in the core take approximately 170,000 years to reach the surface, where they're emitted as light and heat in the form of photons and solar wind. But only a very tiny amount of this vast energy reaches the Earth. If you can imagine 6 average-sized truckloads of sand, about 150 cubic yards, as the total energy output of the sun, Earth's share is equal to 5 grains of sand. And yet, that small amount, small only proportion to the total, is 173 trillion watts per second and powers all earthly life as well as its weather. Originally, it was the sun's gravity that gave birth to the solar system and is still holding us close to its powerful being. Although it's 93 million miles away, such a distance is minuscule in cosmic terms. If we consider, for example, the distance from here at the church to Taylor, Missouri, about 8 miles, as a scale for the distance to the nearest star, Proxima Centauri, our distance from the sun would be 2 centimeters. On the same scale, if we consider the same distance from here to Taylor as being from our solar system to the center of the Milky Way galaxy, our distance from the sun would be 4 10,000ths of the width of a human hair. On a cosmic scale, there really is no separation of our planet from the sun. The 3 hieroglyphs at the bottom were a standard saying in ancient Egypt. They were traditionally appended to the end of a letter, much as we use sincerely or best wishes. Sometimes they were added in conversation when mentioning someone's name so that life, wholeness, and health would find them. So in the context here, this icon is a reminder that all of our existence, our birth, our bodies, the foods that sustains us, the heat that nurtures and protects us, the light that informs our minds and our thoughts through our vision, have their origins in the sun. Even the fuel that cooks our food, that heats our houses and powers our vehicles, are products of creatures that enjoyed the gifts of the sun, shining on primordial seas or nourishing ancient fields and forests millions of years ago. Followed to a further conclusion, it could be understood that we are more than just creatures dependent on the sun for our existence, but seen from the distant cosmic perspective, actual emanations of the sun, tied to it as entirely as the light and heat that it produces. Could it be that ancient peoples, Akhenaten, as well as many ancient societies that worship the sun, intuited something about the nature of our existence and our consciousness that has been forgotten as our society and our science try to find a language to describe the sun, speaking of it in terms that we can comprehend and reducing it to nothing more than a large glowing ball of gas? Is it perhaps possible that even our consciousness, a thing that we claim to be exclusively ours, unique to us as humans and the foundation of our perception of ego, is in reality a gift from a universe, from a sun whose life and consciousness we are more than distant participants? But consciousness is as much an element as energy and matter. Quantum physics seems to indicate that the universe exists first as waves, possibly as multidimensional vibrations according to string theory, and it's only because there are conscious observers that particles even exist, that there is matter. This implies that there can be no separation of the ego, of the sentient perceiver, from all existence, that the joy and wonder and compassion we feel in connection to our fellow human beings, to nature, to the world, and to the dark night sky is a genuine intuition of our role in creation. That our very awareness in every moment is the holy act of creation. We are more than participants in the consciousness gifted us by a distant sun. We are the consciousness of that very sun. Conscious awareness, sentience itself, is the sacred act of creation. The poet, artist, critic John Ruskin's description of light could just as well be interpreted as a description of consciousness. Ruskin says, light, the breathing, animated, exulting light, which feels and receives and rejoices and acts, which chooses one thing and rejects another, which seeks and finds and loses again, leaping from rock to rock, from leaf to leaf, from wave to wave, glowing or flashing or scintillating according to what it strikes, or in its holier moods, absorbing and enfolding all things in the deep fullness of its repose. And then again, losing itself in bewilderment and doubt and dimness, or perishing and passing away, entangled in drifting mist, or melted into melancholy air, but still, kindling or declining, sparkling or still, it is the living light which breathes in its deepest, most entranced rest, which sleeps but never dies. Buddha said, 3 things cannot be hidden: the sun, the moon, and the truth. What does it mean to seek the truth in love? Maybe it's to remember our connection to the sun and its many gifts, to all the world, to the miracle of life, to all sentient beings, and to the infinite love that has granted us this holy existence. To see that miracle, that love, that holiness, and maybe, just maybe, to see the truth revealed in every moment, in the warmth of the sun on a beach, or on a mountaintop, or in the heat of a summer afternoon, in shining snowflakes, in wind and rain, in a garden of flowers or vegetables, in the warm water of a morning shower or warm house in winter, in the power of our cars or in the power to fly anywhere in the world, in the warmth of a child's hand in ours, or in the warm embrace of those we love. Let's hear one more from Akhenaten, the hymn to the Aten. Your rays nourish every garden. When you rise, they live. They grow by you. You make the seasons in order to create all your work. Winter to bring coolness and heat that you may suckle them. You make millions of forms through yourself alone, cities, towns, tribes, nations, highways and rivers and oceans and fields. All eyes see you before them, for you are the Aten, the sun and the day,